for the organization and to the opportunity to present this paper that we prepared with Ariane Villafuerte. She's here with me. So let's begin. The idea of the paper is to discuss and measure the labor informality with a gender perspective. So we begin. The paper has this structure, and I will begin in these 20 minutes, beginning with the idea that in Latin America, we have informality as a structural form of labor arrangement, and it remains above 50%, and despite the economic growth in Latin America. And the paper begins with a discussion from two main perspectives in the region, the International Labour Organization and the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And although both perspectives have taken steps, important steps, to integrate a gender perspective, there is much work to do to fully theorize and empirically capture the ways gender dynamics shape labor market. So the objective of this paper is to analyze labor informality in urban Bolivia from an integrated gender perspective, combining institutional structure and social reproduction dimensions. So the main argument of this paper is that informality in Bolivia is not only a result of structural heterogeneity as the ECLAT perspective, not only normative barriers from an ILO perspective, but also a core mechanism reproducing gender inequality. So we can identify three main contributions of this paper. First, we are advancing a unified analytical framework to study informality as simultaneously a phenomenon resulting from deficit of labor rights, a manifestation of structural heterogeneity, but also a gendered mechanism of labor allocation. Then we develop a national operativization of ILO 21st standard to Bolivian context, and we examine empirical trends in urban Bolivia between 2022 and 2025. ¿Puedes marcar en la hora? Me marcas los tiempos ya para... Okay, so I will not spend time talking about the ILO perspective, nor with the ECLAT perspective. What I would like just to mention is the contribution from the feminist economics that have discussed in detail how unpaid care work and labor informality are structurally interconnected. And it comes from a very long tradition showing that to understand the opportunities of labor market participation by men and women, we must incorporate the relationship with the social organization of care and non-market work. So to understand the opportunities to get to good jobs or what type or different types of jobs, we have to consider this relationship between paid and unpaid. So it is very important the centrality of care and social reproduction to understand the opportunities to formalize, to be informal sector or informal sector. So this long literature that we discuss in this paper calls for a methodological innovation and reorient the analysis of informality, incorporating time, care, and social reproduction. So I would like just to show this graphic. This is Nancy Folbre article, and what she arguments here, resuming a long discussion for more than 4 decades, is that we have to discuss, have a critical perspective of these barriers, of these categories of market, no market, no market within production, economic boundary from non-economic boundary. So in this article, what she is arguing is that we have to include no market family care in the analysis to understand informality and formality. So going through the paper, we apply the ILO criteria to Bolivia, and we use the 2 main criteria: registration of the economic unit and affiliation and contribution to long-term social security. And we apply that for Bolivia. So I will not go that in detail, but what we get here, we have one side the INSEAI estimate, and the other side the ILO estimate, and what we can see is that we get very close. But what we understood is that the proxy variables used by ILO and also what they use to expand the database is not that transparent. So we don't know exactly what criteria they use along in every year of the data set. But what we got is very comparable, and now we can really have an analysis, understanding what we are using as proxy to build informality data. So what I would like to begin to discuss one of the papers in the last table session is that, first of all, we have to understand that women participation is consistently lower than men, but labor force participation. And this is very related to the division of labor. So we have actually, in absolute terms, less women in the labor force. So in the case of Bolivia, we have here the same data, but now we have here. And what we can see is that from a gender perspective, from the feminist economics, we have to analyze labor market participation, including the distribution from labor force and outside labor force. And to see that, we can see here that when we are talking about women, in absolute terms, we are less than men. And for that reason, we have to use percentage to understand the probabilities and to discuss the barriers of participation. So here is informality. As we can see, we have less urban women in informal sector than men in absolute terms. But what we have to do is to analyze in percentage perspective. So here, what we can see is that in Bolivia, going to the results, is that actually, from a ECLAD perspective, the majority of informal workers are in informal sector. And what we can see here in the bottom of this table is that women in informal sector, we have a higher percentage of women in household sector. This is the main difference with men. And in terms of in percentage perspective, women are lower in formal sector than men. So in percentage perspective, in terms of a relative participation, the probability of women to enter the informal sector is higher. And we did also a model that confirmed that the difference is significant. So just some evidence. What we see here is that in terms of education, if you have a higher education, you will have more probability to be informal sector, right? And in case of women, that is even more significant. And in informal sector, we have very similar perspective. So I will go fast to see that. What we saw also is that it's not only gender, it's also indigenous, that we can see some pattern. Also, we have an interesting pattern when we cross this data with age. So we have this U-shaped pattern, and it is similar for men and women. And what I would like to put some attention is here for employment categories. What we can see here is that when we are talking, I will put directly to women, I'm struggling with, okay, here. So what we can see is that actually women are in informal sector, 52 are self-employed, 15 are unpaid family worker in comparison to 0% of men. No, in comparison to 11%, 12%, and 6.5% is domestic worker. So what we see here is that informal women are more distributed in self-employed and unpaid workers than men. And men don't work as unpaid apprentice or domestic worker, less than 1%. So here is some difference. And also when we see by occupational branch, we also see some different patterns from men and women. And we see that women are more concentrated and in branches that are related to care work. Here I will go to another important difference between men and women. And what we see here is that is hours, working hours. This is an important evidence. What we can see here is a very important gap between hours when among women and men in informal sector. So what we can see here is women work less hours in informal sector, and the gap is larger in comparison with formal women. Okay, thank you. And here we have the income as the one important result of these different patterns of participation. And what we can see here is that the gap between formal and informal women and men women and men in informality is very huge, much higher than informal sector. When we see that by hourly, average hourly, the gap is still important. And then we have here a very an evidence that shows that what we are saying is that women has higher probability to be in informal activities, in the informal jobs. But within informality, women has a higher probability to be in the most precarious jobs. And this is an evidence, this table show that 75% of informal women receives an income below the national minimum wage, in comparison to 40% of men. So here we can see a huge gap that is consistent. This is a pattern of participation. So going to conclusions. What we can see is that in the Bolivian case, in the urban Bolivian society, informality, we are building the argument that informality is a structural, an institutional, and a gendered phenomenon that is shaped by this interaction between productive heterogeneity, incomplete labor regulation, but also a result of the social organization of care. So what we can see in the article is that we can see evidence from the ILO perspective, from the ECLAR perspective, and also the feminist economics. So in the last one, the feminist economics, we can see that informality, we have evidence that informality is deeply shaped by the unequal social organization of care, generating time poverty and restricting human access to formal employment. This is our agenda. So now what we are working is analyzing time use data. We have a new data set, and we are building the data to understand, to keep analyzing the relationship between care work, domestic, non-wage domestic work, informality, and formality. So what we are building the argument is that policy focused solely on regulation or business formalization are insufficient if they do not address the reorganization of care and women's time constraint. So if in our agenda of research, we are trying to build more and more evidence of this situation, and doing so, a transformative approach to formalization would require expanding labor rights and social protection to all forms of work, as the ILO agenda says, but also productive industrial policy that create high productivity jobs accessible to women and men, but also to women, what says ECLAD argument, And also, we have to see social policies. And within social policy, build a comprehensive care system that redistribute unpaid labor away from households. That says we have to reorganize the public and social co-responsibility of care. So to finish our presentation, it is what we are trying to include in this debate is a feminist political economy perspective that reframes the debate, showing that formalization is not just moving works into formal jobs, but transforming the social relations that make informality a gendered necessity. Thank you very much. And in our reference, we have these references. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernanda. Sangome?
I have a question. Thank you very much for. I fully agree with your conclusions. But have I got you right that you included unpaid work in informal labor?
No. No.
No, no. Okay, so then I confused that.
No, in this paper, we worked with the categories. What we are doing in the next paper is try to really incorporate the unpaid and understand the relationship. But in this work, we are only working with women and men that is inserted in the labor market.
Thank you.
Okay. More? Then next is Emma Garavita. Sorry. She's going to speak Spanish, right? ¿Dónde estaba?
En el escritorio. No, ¿para qué? Dale. Ya.
¿Está?
La primera.
¿Está?
No, la otra.
¿Está?
Ah, sí, 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 sí. Bueno, muy buenas tardes para todas, para todos.
Espérate, porque tengo que poner en...
Ah, pero tengo que hacerme allá para que me vean, ¿cierto?
Cambia la...
A ver, sí.
Es que hay que compartirla.
¿Cómo cambias después?
Hay que compartirla por esta.
¿Ya está?
¿Cómo cambias el pantalla? Vamos a cambiar el que lo cambie.
Ya sabes que si tú me dices vengo de foto. Está grabando ya. Ya.
¿Acá?
Es que sentarte, échalo para atrás.
Presentada en la radio.
No tienes sentarme.
¿Acá? ¿Sí? ¿Se ve ahí?
Sí.
Ok, por acá. Bueno, muy buenas tardes para todas y para todos. Mi nombre es Emma Ávila Gravito. Hago parte de Dash Consultores, una firma consultora que está vinculada al proyecto y en esta ocasión vamos a hablar sobre la sobreexposición que tienen las mujeres víctimas de conflicto armado en Colombia hacia la informalidad con un análisis empírico para la construcción de paz territorial en Colombia. Tengo también, digamos, un trabajo que he desarrollado con mis dos socios, María Moyano y Cristian Castillo. Ahí estamos. Ok. El objetivo general es analizar precisamente cuál es la relación de la exposición de las mujeres al conflicto armado colombiano frente y sus hechos victimizantes frente a la informalidad y cuál es, digamos, el trabajo que se puede hacer desde allí para poder generar construcción de paz. En ese sentido, se pueden abordar 3 objetivos particulares. El primero, describir cuáles son las afectaciones diferenciales del conflicto armado en Colombia hacia las mujeres. El segundo, tratar de ver cuál es la probabilidad o estimar la probabilidad de inserción de las mujeres en el mercado informal, en la economía informal, desde 2 fuentes muy importantes. La primera es el Registro Único de Víctimas, que lleva la unidad para la atención de las víctimas en Colombia, y también la gran encuesta integral de hogares, que es con la cual se mide todo el tema del mercado laboral en Colombia. Y a partir de allí, pues darle una lectura a esos resultados a través de primero un análisis estadístico que se hizo y un modelo econométrico para poder, como lo comentaban las compañeras que me antecedieron, dar una lectura desde la economía feminista. Adelante. Ahí, adelante.
Ahí.
Un clic. Un clic. Eso. 2 frases importantes. La primera, que tiene que ver con algo que es una realidad que ha acompañado todos los conflictos y las guerras en el mundo, que es el cuerpo de la mujer, que ha sido usado como botín de guerra por todos los sectores armados, y la violencia sexual como arma dentro de los conflictos. Esta es una pequeña frase de una niña joven de 14 años que fue violentada por un grupo paramilitar en una zona que se llama Montes de María, Colombia. Y la segunda, que tiene más referencia con lo que es la autonomía económica, que es finalmente lo que se vulnera cuando se violenta a una mujer y se le desplaza, y es que con el desplazamiento no solo les quitan la tierra o su territorio, no lo sacan de la tierra, sino todo con lo cual sostienen la vida, es decir, toda su autonomía económica. Adelante. Antes quiero preguntar si alguien conoce ese cuadro. ¿No? Bueno, adelante. Santos, una, por favor. Este, si lo conocen.
No.
Te lo presento. Este es el Guernica, el cuadro que pintó Pablo Picasso cuando el fascismo, el franquismo y el fascismo llegaron a atacar y acabaron todo un pueblo. Es el cuadro mítico de la violencia política, ¿no? Y este, que está allí en el Reina Sofía, muy cerca de Santos, que visita cada 8 días. Entonces, este cuadro es como el emblema de retratamos la guerra para que no vuelva a pasar. El cuadro que le sigue, que les quería mostrar, se llama La violencia y es de Alejandro Obregón, que es un catalán que lo pinta en 1962. Es decir, el conflicto armado interno acaba de nacer en Colombia, en teoría. Y ya se ve cómo hay una afectación diferencial a las mujeres. Es una mujer que está embarazada, pero tiene asimismo un seno mutilado, tiene sangre en su vagina, por lo que podemos decir que fue víctima de violencia sexual. Y desafortunadamente, yo digo, este es nuestro Guernica. ¿Qué ha pasado? Que 60, 70 años después seguimos viendo mujeres violentadas y no hemos podido hacer ese proceso. Entonces, es importante decir que las mujeres en el marco del conflicto armado, adelante, Sandra. Abajo. Uy. Ve. Ahí. Ahí. ¿Ya? Las mujeres, o cuando hablamos de mujeres en el marco del conflicto armado, hablamos de 3 grupos. El primero, las que hacen parte de la guerra, que son, por ejemplo, las mujeres que hacen parte de las fuerzas o de la policía, el cuerpo militar y policía. La segunda son de actores armados ilegales, como en este caso la guerrilla, en donde además ya se ve que, por ejemplo, hay una niña con un fusil, es supremamente fuerte en la imagen. Y la tercera son las víctimas, las mujeres que están en el centro del conflicto. Esta es una foto de una masacre también que hubo por parte de la guerrilla en una zona que es muy peligrosa en Colombia, pero además muy marginada. Entonces, si bien sabemos que esto históricamente ha pasado, solo hasta el 2008 la Corte Constitucional dice, evidentemente, las mujeres en el marco del conflicto armado colombiano viven de manera diferencial el conflicto. El primero, y bueno, señala 10 hechos fundamentales. El primero está ligado a la violencia sexual en el marco del conflicto, que es lo que hemos comentado. El segundo, a cuando las secuestran o cuando las reclutan para ser esclavizadas sexualmente y domésticamente dentro de las filas. El tercero es cuando logran reclutar a sus hijos, o sea, se los quitan para llevarlos a la guerra. El cuarto es cuando entran en algún contacto con las mujeres para tener algún tipo de relación. El quinto es, o se relaciona con las mujeres que ejercen liderazgo social y defensa de derechos humanos en sus territorios y son violentadas de manera diferencial también. El sexto es la persecución como una estrategia coercitiva, lo que pueden hacer. El séptimo es cuando, y acá es donde empezamos a relacionarlo más con el tema económico, empiezan o desaparecen a sus esposos o a su proveedor. Ellas empiezan ya a llevar una carga, además del cuidado que tenían en casa, una carga económica, otra, la relación que puedan tener allí. Es muy importante la discriminación que tienen además algunas mujeres, muchas mujeres, además de ser mujeres por ser indígenas o ser afro. Este puede ser, como lo decía ahorita Fernanda, la continuación de este paper, de esta investigación, porque es muy interesante verlo así. Y por supuesto, la última es que en el proceso de desplazamiento, el proceso de asesinato de sus esposos, pues ellas quedan totalmente vulnerables. Entonces, acá hay algunos datos frente a cuáles son los hechos victimizantes que se han logrado recuperar o que se han logrado compilar. Entonces, tenemos que para septiembre del 2025, hace 2 meses, se registraban más de 42.000 mujeres violentadas que han registrado su hecho dentro del marco del conflicto armado. Vemos además que acá está la curva de los hombres, sobre en azul está la afectación hacia los hombres y en naranja hacia las mujeres. Y si nos damos cuenta, los delitos sexuales han afectado de manera muy desproporcionada hacia las mujeres. Pero después sigue el desplazamiento forzado, que son estas condiciones que las arrancan de su tierra, las arrancan de sus medios de vida y las mandan a la pobreza. Amenazas, abandono, despojo de tierras, confinamiento, bueno, y aquí hacia abajo ya nos damos cuenta que son más los hombres quienes padecen esto, porque además están más vinculados a las armas. Algunos datos importantes por acá, y es que, claro, el 90%, más del 90% de las víctimas de minas antipersona son hombres. El 74% de las víctimas de secuestro son hombres. Bueno, amenazas también son más afectados los hombres. El reclutamiento forzado también está más ligado hacia los hombres. Y acá ya se empieza a equilibrar un poco frente a la tortura, ¿no? Porque todos los hechos de violencia sexual están ligados o muy ligados a la tortura, desaparición forzada, pero algo que hablábamos hoy, que es un tema no solo de Colombia, sino que está en todos los países donde hay conflicto, que son las mujeres buscadoras de sus seres que han sido desaparecidos, desplazamiento y el tema de violencia sexual. Entonces, esto digamos que nos da un contexto importante para decir, evidentemente las mujeres en el marco del conflicto armado están expuestas. Y acá ya entramos a otro tema muy importante que es la autonomía económica. Para esto, como lo hicieron las colegas de Bolivia, traigo a la CEPAL que dice que la autonomía de las mujeres debe tener 3 elementos importantes. Lo primero, tener la autonomía física, es decir, vivir una vida libre de violencias, que puedas caminar tranquilamente por la calle y no te violen, etcétera, etcétera. 2, una autonomía política, entonces es muy importante la participación que haya, tanto en la parte electoral como en el hecho de hacer políticas públicas con perspectiva de género. Y tercera, y muy importante, es la autonomía económica. Estas 3 están relacionadas. Si bien se dice que una mujer que tenga autonomía económica es menos propensa a ser vulnerada, esto no implica que sea absuelta totalmente, por ejemplo. Y, por supuesto, esto pues ha tenido afectaciones diferenciales en el marco del conflicto. Una vez más, en la parte económica, pues son despojadas de sus tierras y de sus medios de vida. En la parte de su cuerpo y obviamente en la parte psicológica, pues son violentadas dentro de todos los hechos que hay allí. Y en la parte política, obviamente hay una persecución particular a las mujeres que quieren ejercer algún cargo público. Hay un hecho particular que nos pone o que lanza a las mujeres en vulnerabilidad económica y es precisamente el desplazamiento forzado que nos lleva a verlo desde tres elementos importantes. Uno, la pérdida de la tierra que ellas tienen, ser despojadas de su territorio, que no es solo la tierra, sino también su cultura, sus costumbres, su familia, su red de apoyo. Dos, la parte productiva, pues porque al tener tierras, muchas de ellas están en la parte rural, que es donde está el conflicto armado, pues es donde tienen sus medios de vida y donde pueden sacar la producción para sobrevivir. Y la tercera es esta violencia, pues ese desplazamiento simbólico que nos lleva más a los elementos culturales. Entonces, el desplazamiento es en sí el elemento que más pone en condición de vulnerabilidad a las económica, a las mujeres, porque, claro, si matan a su esposo, a ellas las sacan no solas, sino con su familia, y tienen que irse hacia las ciudades, migrar hacia las ciudades, para poder sostener a sus hijos, para poder defenderlos, y allí pues a engrosar los círculos de la pobreza. En esto es importante decir que son más las mujeres que son desplazadas que los hombres, y que además se pierde la titularidad sobre la tierra. Estamos hablando que el 26% de las mujeres que son las únicas que tienen tierra en Colombia. Es decir, de cada 10 hectáreas de tierra que hay, 7,5 la tienen los hombres. Y claro, cuando hay un proceso de desplazamiento, se profundiza esta tenencia de tierra. Si no tienen tierra, no tienen acceso a crédito. Si no pueden acceder a crédito, siguen empobreciendo. Y luego, esto se complementa con lo que nos dice Silvia Federici, que en su crítica a Marx, dice, bueno, es que esto es un tema estructural, no lo podemos ver al margen de lo que han vivido las mujeres históricamente en el sistema patriarcal capitalista. Con esto ya podemos dar, digamos, el contexto para ver cómo la mujer se inserta en la informalidad. Y acá partimos de una definición que da el Departamento Administrativo Nacional de Estadística, el DANE, que clasifica al empleo informal como el empleo que no paga o que no está afiliado a la seguridad social. Digamos que esa es la medida en general con la cual se puede recibir o medir, si se quiere, y cómo se mide, de hecho, el empleo informal en Colombia. Claramente está vinculado a lo que dice OIT, y bueno, igual está, como lo hemos comentado, como se ha visto durante todo el workshop, en continua discusión cómo se mide esto. Algunas, digamos, aproximaciones y medidas que ya hemos hecho parten del registro único de víctimas, que surge después del proceso de paz. Esto es muy importante. Antes no se veía, a pesar que llevamos un conflicto armado muy fuerte, no se tenían mayores estadísticas de las víctimas del conflicto armado. Afortunadamente, ahora se puede llevar una estadística sobre eso a partir del registro único de víctimas, que se empieza a medir, insisto, desde el 2016. A partir de allí empieza nuestra medición, y cuando cruzamos esto con datos de informalidad, como se puede medir la informalidad desde la gran encuesta integrada de hogares del DANE, nos da que evidentemente las mujeres que están expuestas a la violencia sí tienen, como lo decían también y como lo comentaba Fernanda en Bolivia, una exposición mayor a la informalidad. Obviamente aquí están los hombres que han sido víctimas, que se mantienen por debajo de las mujeres. Es decir, acá hay una doble condición, el hecho de ser mujer y de ser víctima las expone de dos formas distintas, y acá está la media. Hay algo muy importante, y es que esta primera parte, esta primera etapa, es la prepandemia, que es un momento en el cual en el país, en Colombia, había mucho optimismo por el proceso de paz, venimos una recuperación económica, había confianza, y empezó, digamos que se empezaron a bajar, por ejemplo, las cifras de informalidad. Claramente, en la época de la pandemia, con toda la crisis que se desencadenó, pues todas las cifras de informalidad se incrementaron de manera importante. Esto ocurrió en toda la población. Pero al final hay algo muy interesante, y es que en la pospandemia las mujeres siguieron vinculadas a la informalidad, es decir, la tasa no descendió. ¿Por qué? Muchas de ellas quedaron ahí atrapadas, muchas de ellas quedaron sobreexpuestas al tema de economía del cuidado y demás. Esto es un poco lo que hemos podido ver hasta el momento. Ahora, ¿qué puede explicar esto? Creo que lo decía Fernanda, es muy importante el tema de tener una lectura más profunda, esto es importante. Primero, saber que son cerca de 7 millones de personas desplazadas a nivel interno del país, en donde el 51,3% son mujeres. Segundo, el tema de la economía del cuidado. Sí que es un factor que pesa en el momento en el que las mujeres quedan sin esposo o sin red familiar, están más expuestas también a dedicar tiempo al cuidado de sus hijos y sus hijas. Entonces, pierden también la posibilidad de vincularse al mercado laboral. También las mujeres que están en el marco del conflicto armado, tan solo el 64% puede obtener un título escolar o terminar la primera parte escolar, y esto obviamente las pone más vulnerables en el mercado laboral. También hay un tema muy importante que es la financiarización, y es que tan solo el 24% de las mujeres víctimas pueden acceder a créditos. Si no tienen esto, pues no pueden formalizar, no pueden emprender, no pueden hacer actividades de economía propia, por decirlo de alguna manera. Y por supuesto, cuando salen o cuando llegan a las ciudades desplazadas, se dedican en gran medida a hacer al trabajo doméstico remunerado y también al comercio, digamos, minoritario en las ciudades y algunos otros elementos propios. El modelo que nosotros, digamos, corrimos o que se produjo para poder verificar esta hipótesis es un logic que lo que nos presenta es la informalidad, digamos, en las mujeres víctimas, dadas además con unas variables independientes que están las mujeres que no están expuestas, la edad, la educación y la zona rural. En esto, pues, digamos que los resultados son bastante dicientes, y es que evidentemente una mujer víctima tiene el 33% de probabilidad mayor que una mujer que no ha sido expuesta a estar en la informalidad. Es una cifra bastante alta. En la medida en que tengan más educación, no cambia realmente mucho que puedan mejorar sus condiciones, pero sí les sirve que puedan llegar a un mercado laboral más preparados. En la medida en que tengan más años o mayor edad, sí pueden vincularse de manera más fuerte al mercado formal. Y por supuesto hay algo muy importante acá, y es que las mujeres campesinas, al igual que nos lo decían en Bolivia, o las mujeres que habitan la ruralidad, están sobreexpuestas a la informal. Es decir, allí sufren ya discriminación por el hecho de ser mujer, por el hecho de ser víctima y por estar en la ruralidad. Si a esto le sumáramos, por ejemplo, una mirada étnica racial, seguramente se profundiza. Si además le decimos una mujer lesbiana o transgénero, ya está en el peor de los escenarios. Entonces, con esto, solo decir que evidentemente la informalidad de las mujeres es un tema estructural en Colombia, y que obviamente ha tenido un impacto diferenciado en el conflicto armado que afecta de manera importante pues las inequidades de género. También lo que hemos comentado, las mujeres que están expuestas al conflicto armado tienen el 23% de probabilidad de saltar hacia la informalidad. El desplazamiento forzado es sobre todo el hecho que lleva a que las mujeres puedan estar vinculadas o se vinculen una vez tengan un desplazamiento a la economía informal. Hay varios elementos además de esto que pueden afectar, que es el tema de la educación, de la vivir dentro de la ruralidad, y además hacer la edad que puedan tener. Eso pues cambia las formas como se relacionan. Y desde una perspectiva de economía feminista también es importante señalar que la autonomía económica se ve vulnerada completamente cuando las mujeres están en estos escenarios, y que además la posibilidad no solo de entrar a la informalidad, sino a la pobreza es casi que directa. Y bueno, ya casi es todo. Muchas gracias y...
Preguntas.
Ay, perdón.
Bueno, primero me encantó la presentación. A mí me encanta todo el tema como de economía feminista y de género y demás. Entonces, de todo esto, nivel economía y género me encanta a mí. Pero tenía una duda, porque digamos, para nosotras ahorita estamos haciendo una investigación sobre las madres en informalidad, digamos, y esto va vinculado como a todo el tema que tiene en términos de la desprotección social, que esto va a ser cadena, ¿verdad? Y algo que hemos visto es que muchas veces están insertas en la informalidad porque esa es la única forma que pueden conciliar cuidado y trabajo remunerado. Entonces, digamos, al menos nosotras, digamos, bueno, estamos buscando la investigación en Costa Rica y yo entiendo que a veces la data cuesta un poco como poder llegarle a todos estos puntos, ¿verdad? Porque para nosotros todo el mundo puede conectar mujeres que fueron madres dentro de la encuesta de hogares, pero yo te lo doy como de si dentro de este modelo consideraste incluir esto como la maternidad como uno de los factores.
No hay, precisamente no hay, digamos, no hay un dato, no hay una forma de decir si estas mujeres, además de ser víctimas, son madres. Pero lo que nos dice la estadística, sobre todo por el tema de la edad, es que sí, digamos, están en un momento en el que pues, pueden maternar. Y que evidentemente en la ruralidad y en estas zonas de conflicto es lo que abunda, ¿no? Es la media, lo que pasa. Entonces, no hay una relación directa, pero si ves los hechos victimizantes, si están relacionados a que ellas se desplazan con sus hijos, les secuestran a sus hijos, los reclutan a sus hijos y son buscadores. ¿Sí? Entonces, sí hay una relación directa allí, no hay una forma, o no la he encontrado, no la he visto y me parece interesante de medir esto. Pero fíjate que también se explica a nivel general, de manera estructural, como también lo decían los colegas de Bolivia, el tema del cuidado como un agravante para la informalidad, lograr conciliar eso. Ahora, es importante buscar alternativas, por ejemplo, de la economía solidaria. En la tesis de doctorado que estoy adelantando es una de las, digamos, de las apuestas, ¿no? Cómo podemos llevar a que ellas no salgan de la informalidad o de la formalidad, ni siquiera dentro de las ciudades, sino que puedan volver a sus territorios y allí generar sus emprendimientos para la paz que las permitan, pues les permitan convivir y poder también tener su autonomía.
Muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta más? Si no, ahora Nara Álvarez y Julieta Constantino is talking about the structural informality among women recipients of social programs. Julieta o Nara is not here. Julieta. Is not here. Following, Adriana Fontes, Daniela Carusi, Daniela. Flexibility that penalize gender, wage inequality and informality in remote work in Brazil.
Sí.
Hay que salirse de esto. Déjalo ahí, déjalo ahí. Vamos. ¿No es usted? Este.
Yes.
Ok.
Más pasa. I speak in English, but sorry that my English is not so fluent. And I put all the things in the slides, so any doubts in my English, you can stop me.
No problem, no problem. Only Matthias speaks English well.
You?
Speak a
Oh,
lot.
I can do it.
Speak a little about Daniela. Yeah.
Hi, yes. Well, it's a paper with Adriana and Valeria, and we made a paper about gender inequality and informality in remote work in Brazil. I will talk some about the motivation. In fact, after the post-pandemic, we had expansion in remote work and growth from home here in Brazil and in other places. And there is a lot of debate, discussion about these new arrangements in work. In Brazil, we also have a lot of people in formal work, and this is important to understand also in different modalities, in different arrangements, how this relationship, formal or informal, impact in the labor conditions by gender. We also have a great gender inequality here in Brazil. And also because we have a lot of unpaid care work. And I will show after a table showing this. So these kind of arrangements in work, remote work or work from home is more flexible, but the woman accumulates the journey, the hours in work and hours in domestic labor, in care activities. So there are a lot of evidence in other countries suggesting that this kind of flexible work penalize also the woman because it's a double journey, domestic and in the work. So we think it's important to look this gender perspective in these new arrangements. Here is a table showing that women spend more hours. Sorry, it's important, but here is the as we go, the income increase. So here is the hours, unpaid domestic hours by women and men. What we can see that independent of the income level, women work more, have more domestic hours than men. And the gender gap persists independent of income level. Women average 22 hours per week in domestic work in Brazil. And there is a persistent 10 hours gender gap in domestic. So this article will contribute in the literature analyzing the effects of flexible work, these new modalities of work, remote work or work from home, how this affects the gender inequalities, especially in earnings inequalities, labor earnings inequalities. We analyze the two kinds of modalities, remote and working from home, and the difference in income. These things impact by formal and informal labor segments. We use the decomposition strategy by Kohaka blind, but it's a new method that decomposes the difference in income by different segments in the income distribution.
we can see, for example, within the bottom, there is a big difference between man and woman, and in the top, if this difference persists. And also we can see if this difference is caused by the composition effect, the difference in characteristics, or if it is caused by discrimination, the structural effect. It's likely or blind decompositions, traditional in labor economics, this kind of methodology. We have to differentiate the two definitions of labor insertion. Remote work is work performed away from employer's workplace at least once a week. It's like a hybrid work. And working from home, the location of the work is at home, in the domicile. We use data from Pesquisa Nacional por Amostra de Domicílios. It's a national survey, very common here in Brazil. And we use 1 year, the fourth quarter of 2022, because there is a supplement about the new work arrangement, telework, digital platform work, everything about this kind of new way to insertion in the labor market. As we are looking at work at home, we eliminate some kinds of occupations like firefighters, police officers, military, because it's not in the domicile. And also people who do some kind of domestic activities in my place, for example. And we stay with works in active 18 to 64. The decomposition of labor hours is from Filippo Fortin-Lemieux. It's a method that decomposes the wage difference between men and women along the distribution and use quantile regressions. This is good. This is important to see how the distribution, the gap, how the gap is designed in the distribution. We can see how men and women differ along the distribution, and also the factors that can explain this gap between men and women. It's based on equations, estimation of INSEAI equation. Wait, I will take this equation, a traditional equation in labor economics. We use the usual hourly earnings in the principal job. Here, there are a lot of controls, the traditional controls, education, age, type of occupation, and we use we do 8 decompositions, but after I will return home, please. Because the difference can be decomposed in one part that is explained by the difference. For example, if a woman has more education, he can take a better job and a good salary than a man. And this is the composition effect. And also we can decompose the gap by another unexplained part that is, we call a structural effect. For example, men and women has the same education level, but the employer can decide to remunerate better than men than women, but they have the same productive attributes. This is discrimination, what called a structural effect. It's like you have a blind, but we look at along the distribution. Here is some statistics. Work from home and remote work. I will resume. Woman has a large than men probability to be work from home and in remote work. White, here the education level, better education is more in work from home and remote work. Here in Brazil, self-employment is very important in work from home. Employer too, but not so much as self-employed. And remote work, we have more employer, self-employment, and also military, some kind of person who stay and have also remote work. Here is the kind of occupations, normally the high occupation, high level occupation. Here, we begin to look at the informality case by the type of work, work from home, remote, and the total. What can summarize this graph? Working from home, there is a big informality rates, independent of the group, men and women, and all the people. After we have total informality rate. Informality rate in work from home is bigger to women, and in remote work also is bigger for women, but it's not so different. In terms of income, we have that groups, and if working from home, men and women. What we can see, women, the income is lower than men, and the difference is big in remote work, and also in working from home, the difference is not so big. So we try to take a look at what happened in the distribution. This is the graph of income in working from home. Blue is men, and red is woman. The dashed is informal, okay? And I don't know how to say that in English, but this one is
blue line.
Yes, this is the man, informal, and in the formal. What we can see that formal, there are a lot of people with more earns than in informal occupation. And all the graphs say that men, there are a lot of men here in the income levels, high income levels than women. The formal and informal job, okay? In working from home, in remote work, also the same pattern, but the difference is lower. This is the data. What we will do is to decompose this difference by income. I didn't put here all the tables because it's 8 decompositions. formal, informal, by this kind of arrangements. But I put one table, resume the principle is that here, working from home and remote, the total, here is the difference between men and women. In 2010, the bottom, sorry. In the bottom, the difference between men and women is 43%. And the higher difference in the 27, it's 59 too. So as you move it to the distribution, this difference increase in all the types, all the decompositions. And all the decompositions that we did, the difference between men and women is negative. Okay? But the magnitude differs. For example, in remote work, remember that the difference is low. In the bottom, the difference is only 9% between men and women. But as we go upstairs, the difference increases. The higher difference in the 2080, 33%. So there is a big difference here, and the wage penalty, if it's a woman working from home or remote work. In working from home, the penalty is bigger. Is that? In remote work, there is a penalty, wage penalty, but it is lower than here. Okay. So we take a look at the formal and informal relation in each kind of type of work. We also see that in working from home, the penalty is bigger in the top compared to remote work, 49% and 30% in comparing 1997. But we look that in the bottom, it's not so difference between formal and informal. And here in remote work, we don't have so much difference. Informal, it's bigger, but not so much than here. So, what our conclusions, only to resume. Women are overrepresented in working from home and remote work. Working from home is strongly associated with informality, we saw that in the graph, and with lower earnings, especially for women. Remote work is associated with high earnings, but wider gender gaps. We see that there is small gender gaps. Smaller gaps at the bottom, widening in the top, what we say glass ceiling. We have more formal work in remote work, but also dominated by high-paid formal remote workers. Working from home shows the larger gender wage gaps across quantiles. I didn't put the table, but the table is increasing just to fit. And what I didn't put here is the decomposition, but I can say the unexplained component is negative in all modalities. What's this? That's lower returns to women. As I said, they have the same, if men and women has the same attributes, productive attributes, the employer will pay less the woman than men. It's a kind of discrimination. We see that in all the compositions. So informality amplifies the gender asymmetries in job equality and remuneration. Informal sector lower gaps at bottom, but gap is widening at top to 18. The explained components, the composition, women's characteristics should raise ways they are better, they have better characteristics. But as the unexplained component negative is so big, the gap continues. Informal sector, women show earnings advantage in lower and middle quantiles. Explaining component is also positive, but as the unexplained component is negative, with the gap continues. The discrimination is so large. At upper quantiles, the unexplained penalty increase again. Now working from home and remote work. Working from home is the largest penalty in formal and informal sector. Both explained and explained components, they are negative, so it's not so good for women. Men occupy the better paid home-based occupations, and women receive systematically lower returns in all quantiles. In remote work, gaps are small at bottom, but span upper the quantiles. And the explained component is often positive. Women should earn more, but as the unexplained component is so big, the gap persists. So flexibility does not equalize the return to characters. So gender inequality persists even in this kind of flexible arrangements. The woman is overrepresentation in working from home, which is the kind of work that the salary is not so good, and it's not a lack of empowerment because he has a lot of difficulty in this kind of work. Remote work preserves structural inequality in high skill segments, and discrimination is embedding wage centered and career progression. So flexible work reorganized, but does not reduce gender inequality. And the problem is working from home, high informality and large penalties. A lot of discrimination. In remote, we have a formal and high skill, but flat ceiling persists in the top. And we have a lot of discrimination on an equal valuation of the woman characteristics. Sorry for my English, but it's.
Thank you. A question? Right?
The only one remark that's understood. But I'm a bit skeptical if you can conclude that this is a discrimination factor only. So have you controlled for work experience, for instance, because that may explain some variation?
Yes, I agree, because in fact, the unexplained is not that I put in the model. So there is some experience. It can be reflected in age. But
Yeah, or maybe, yes, because a woman very often have interrupted careers, so
Yes.
they have less work experience. I would not
yes,
answer, but that could also be another cause for lower for wage differentials.
yes, I agree.
Yeah.
It's not only discrimination.
Yes,
I think-
that's my argument.
Yes, and as I have a
Disparity
lot.
is not discrimination, it's not only
Yes.
discrimination.
Yes.
More question? No? Let me to give some reminder, which here, yes. Several reminders for INSEAI members. One, first is the contribution of papers or paper proceeding workshop 1 before November the 30th, okay? Second, send us paper for block, very small paper, only 4 pages or 5 pages. All kind of paper about informality and any other relation with any other socioeconomic aspects, right? First, you can, this is the mail for blog post. Says some paper for the statement R. This is explaining the web page. Or news and photograph for newsletter. This is the point. This is important for the participation of members in the web page in different windows of the web page, which is important for dissemination of our activity. Okay. Well, at the last, but not least, the high speaking from Joao. Would you like to present? Daniela, to Joao. Introduce to Joao. Yeah.
Yes.
Joao. Hello, Joao.
Hello.
If you want, you can hold on your presentation.
Yes, please. I'd like to present it, to share with you. Okay, it's habilitated. Just a moment.
But
Oh no.
I think I have to present you first.
Yeah, just a moment. Sorry.
You want to say something? Would you want to say something?
I think it
Can you
How
see
many-
the presentation?
This one, okay. Pick up here in the full screen, right?
Yeah. Okay, now here.
Here. No.
Just a moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Would you like to say something? Okay.
I will introduce you. Wait.
Please.
Hi, João. João Alaki is an economist. He did the master at UFRJ and the doctor also at UFRJ in economics. He is a specialist in informal economic, but because he works at IBGE, the Institute of Statistics here in Brazil. And he worked in the national accounts and also with the definition of informal economy. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your collaboration, Joao. When you go, when you can, right?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, the organizer, for inviting me to this rich event. And just to thank you, Daniela. Just to correct, I did the master in the UF, Universidade Federal Fluminense University, and the PhD at UFRJ. And I worked in national accounts. But nowadays I'm in social indicators. That's other coordination from IBG. I am researcher from IBG since 2002. So we have some places there. I worked in some places of them. But thank you for the presentation. Let's start. The subject, the title of this presentation is Informal Economy in Brazil, but more than this, a specific informal labor, structural and cyclical results. Are you listening okay? Yeah.
Yes, very well. Okay.
Thank you. So let's, to begin with the structure of this presentation. At first, the databases for informal work that we have in Brazil. The two concepts of labor informality used by IBG, the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. After that, the structural results. The source will be the 2022 census, the last census. And with this kind of source, we can see economic activity in details, municipalities, color or race in 5 categories, not just white and non-white people, but with the detailed classification. Or after we can, so in the census, we can see pictures from 2022, and before that picture from 2010. And we have, for this intermediate period, the cyclical results that is provided by the source PNAD Continua. Daniela presented some results from this survey, the Continuous National Household Sample Survey. So we can see the historical series, the recent results. And to finish the final comments and the perspectives about what is IBG is promoting for the next time, for next years. Okay, well, that's just a few words about the demographic census. There is a topic in the form, in the sample form, that is about labor and income. So the census is the largest statistical operation by IBG. It visits all households in the country and applies 2 types of forms, the basic one and the sample one. About 90 million households were visited in 2022, with 7 million interviewed using the sample form. More than 100,000 census takers worked in this operation. Okay, the sample form collects more information, naturally, than the basic one. There are more topics in this form, and it covers 10% of the population. That is a very huge number, around 20 million of people. The decennial census enables structural analysis and provides geographic breakdowns that reach all the 5,570 municipalities in the country. It allows for detailed breakdowns, activity, occupation, age, color, or race. Now talking about the Continuous National Household Sample Survey, we call PNAD Contínua in Portuguese, Pesquisa Nacional por Amostra Domiciliar Contínua. its goal is to monitor quarterly fluctuations, labor force, evolution, and other information for socioeconomic studies using the household as the unit. It was implemented in January 2012, and the sample produces results for Brazil, major regions in Brazil, of course, states and capital cities. 200, more than 200,000 households are visited quarterly, and data is collected in 3,000 municipalities with about 2,200 interviewers working monthly. Okay, it's a continuous operation that we have in the institute. Well, now we can see the concepts of informal work that IBG work, and I will show some results of one and other, and choose one of them to show the results. Well, considering employed persons age 14 years old or older, two definitions are presented as proxies for informal work. One for analyzing individual social protection, and the other related to the workers' enterprise, D2. D1, individual social protection, D2, workers' enterprise. D1 is the employed persons who do not contribute to social security. Those who do not have access to the retirement benefits and paid leave, such as maternity leave, sick leave, or work-related accident leave. The second definition, D2, employees, we consider the group formed by employees and domestic workers without a formal contract, self-employed and employers without a formal business registration, plus unpaid family workers. These two definitions are highly correlated geographically, over time, by gender, race, color, age, level of schooling. And the first one, D1, records slightly fewer informal workers, since an employed person may contribute to Social Security without having a formally registered business. And we will focus this analysis on D1, so with employed persons who do not contribute to Social Security. But two of them are available in IBGE data. Well, these two follow the international recommendations. These indicators presented use concepts, definitions, and terminology in accordance with the recommendation of the ILO adopted at the 19th International Conference. Okay, let's follow to the results, the first group of results, the structural one. This theme, labor and income, was released just last month on October. IBGE publicized these results. Well, in this first slide with results, you can see the average percentage of informal workers according to the two definitions, just for comparison. And in Brazil and major regions, we can see that the blue columns are D1, the purple one, D2. Both definitions present the same pattern, as I said, and we can see, we will see that in this presentation, it's not just informality, but inequality also. And there are clear inequalities with this subject. So regarding this subject, so we can see that North and Northeast have higher informality, and they are well above the national average, with D1 or D2. And South and Southeast, below the national average. From now, yeah.
Excuse me, D1 is included in D2. D1, the definition of D1, employed person who do not contribute to Social Security, is included in employed without formal contract.
Yes. If he do not contribute to social, include every person, employed person, who do not contribute to social security.
Okay.
With formal contract or not. That's why it is a little lower than D2. Okay. Can I continue? So I can't see the hands, so if you have doubts, please call me as you did now. Okay. Well, this second chart, the second slide, we can compare the census 2010 with 2022. The same definition from now on. Just D1 will be showed, and we can see a slight reduction in informality between the census. It was 35.1 in English, 0.1, in Portuguese, comma 1, and 32.7. So there is the sample is very big, so it's a significant, but it's a lower, it's a light. It's not so much. There wasn't so much reduction. We can see also the persistent territorial difference. That's a structural feature. North and Northeast follow being the more than the average. And more than this, the difference, territorial difference, increase as the largest relative reduction was in the South and Central East regions. Okay, well, now I prepare something related to the income. The average monthly real income of formal and informal workers, Brazil, major regions, comparing 2010 and 2022. And we can see different movements to the country, to Brazil. Informal income declined between the census, is the orange columns, unlike formal income. Formal income, just values from July 22, it's inflation corrected. So we can see these opposite directions. Formal income increase and informal income decline. We can see also the significant regional difference in informal income, and it persists between the census, with Northeast and North below national average, also to the income, to average income, although South, Southeast, and Central East above national average. Okay. Well, we have employed person, we have average income, so we can see the distribution of the employed person and the total income by formal and informal category. In Brazil, in Portuguese, we say mass of income, something like that. And now I translate to total income. That is the employed persons multiplied by the average income. The share of informal work was about a third of the total employed population in 2022. But since the average income of informal workers is lower, their total income has a smaller share, and it went from 22.1 in 2010 to 18.8 in 2022. That's just to show that, yeah, about employed person, we have many people involved in this in this category, informal labor. When we talk about income, total income, it's less than, it's a 1/5 of the total income in the labor market. Okay, and when we will, not in this presentation, but when we will see about the value added in national accounts, it's expected that the result is less than this. Okay, well, the share of income comparing major regions, 2010 and 2022, the share varies considerably between regions. The North and Northeast have higher results. So in this case, the share is very bigger for North and Northeast. It decreased, yeah, we can see, but it's still much more than the other regions. There was a downward trend, and the lowest share is in the South, 15%, and the highest in the North, 29%. So the territorial inequality is very clear in Brazil, also in this subject. Well, let's continue. We can see the average percentage of informal workers by state. We have 27 states, the geographic division in Brazil, and there are only 10 states below the national average. All of them located in South, Southeast, and Central East regions. Above the national average, except for Goiás, that is the 11th, all the other are in the North or Northeast regions. And Maranhão and Pará had more than 50% of informal workers, as we can see in this chart. The distribution of municipalities by percentage range of informal workers, a 10% range, we can see that most municipalities fall in the 20-30 informality range, more than 1,200, but less than 2,000 municipalities had informality at or below the national average. And the remaining had higher informality, with more than 2,000 of them above 50% of workers, of informal workers in the total labor. Well, census permit us to see for each municipality, and we have this distribution with the ranking, with the top 15 with lowest result and top 15 with the highest results. We can see that the 15 municipalities with lowest percentage of informal workers were in the South or Southeast, especially in Rio Grande do Sul with 8 municipalities, and Santa Catarina, a state with 4 municipalities in this group of 15. And we can see how low is the share. Presidente Lucena, Rio Grande do Sul, with less than 3% of informal workers, others with 5, 7. And on the other side, with the highest results, the 15 municipalities were all in the north or northeast. Bahia with 4 and Pernambuco with 3 are the major states who has these municipalities. And the share are very high. Pedra, Pernambuco with 83%, 84%, and many municipalities with more than 80% of informal workers. Considering this criteria with social contribution. Well, now we can see for activity is, sorry, okay. Just checking the time. We have the we follow with the percentage. Well, the distribution of total employed and the percentage of informal workers by economic activity. And we can see that 5 out of 21 activity sessions accounted for nearly half of employed persons. The main one are trade, manufacturing, construction, agriculture, and education. Regarding informal workers, there are 4 of them accounting for more than 50%. Agriculture, construction, trade, and domestic services, as that the majority of workers are women. And construction is the opposite. The majority of them are composed by men. So the high share of informality is in domestic services, agriculture, construction, and other services activities. Well, just following, still with the census data, we can see this percentage by gender and race color. There are similar results for men and women, around 30%, around the average, and higher informality among indigenous individuals, mainly, more than 50%, and then black and brown or mixed race individuals, more than 35%, while white and yellow individuals are significantly below the national average. Well, this is a sample, some results in the structural analysis, and then we can see we can pass to the cyclical results that was released quarterly. As it's the sample results, we have results until 2025. I brought the quarterly 2 into 2025. We can see the same pattern, yeah, fortunately, with the census, 10% reduction in informality between the beginning of the series, 2012 to 2025, between the start and the end of the quarterly series. And we can see that it continued to decline after 2022. There's the structural feature with persistent territorial difference is clear with this data, and also the largest reductions in South and Central East. Now we have the results to informal workers by gender and race color. Can see it, the 2 lines above the the average, the total average, are Black, brown, and mixed race men and women. And the two lines below are white and men and women. There is a clear differentiation by race color with a convergence between men and women. Higher informality among Black and brown or mixed race individuals, and a persistent inequality pattern over time, despite some convergence at the end comparing to the beginning. The gap was 15% and now it's 10%. But it's still important, significant. Well, about level of schooling, we can see the 4 categories. The lighter one is the elementary to incomplete higher secondary. Then, no elementary education, elementary to incomplete higher secondary to incomplete graduate, and graduate or college or more, the stronger one. So there is a clear, strong relationship between lower level of schooling and higher informality. Relative convergence between the levels of schooling. Okay, it was almost 40% and now 32%, the difference. And we have to notice that there was an increase in the schooling level of employed person throughout the series. There are more participation of employed person in graduate at the end of the series than in the beginning. So it can impact in the results also. But the clear relationship between lower level of schooling and higher informality is present. Well, final comments. Census and continuous PNAD are two IBGE household surveys that provide insight into informal work in Brazil. I can just this moment, these two sources capture results in the household. So it's the best sources for this subject. Geographical distribution shows significant inequality. Some municipalities have less than 10% informal workers, others 80% or more. The former are in the southeast, the latter in the northeast. Regardless the proxy used, there is a slight reduction in labor informally across distinct aspects, both in 2010-22 census data, as for 2012-25 continuous PNAD series. However, the difference between social categories also remain high. Indigenous, Black, and brown or mixed race individuals have a higher incidence of informal employment, as do employed persons with lower levels of schooling. Data from 2022 census indicate that even though it affects about a third of the employed population, informal work generates about a fifth of labor income. Although it has decreased over the 12 years period, regional inequality is also significant in relation to total income. The North accounts for about 30% of informal income, and the South for about 15%. Well, before finish the presentation, let's see the future perspectives regarding this topic. Micro data from the 2022 census will be released in this year until the end of the year, maybe next month, probably in December. It will allow more detailed analysis, e.g. for basic occupational groups such as drivers and delivery workers. That is a category that is increasing, and many others. The new series of national account system to be released in 2027. The system will be based on the new recommendations of the SNA, the manual, the international manual of national account system, and its chapter 39 is called Informal Economy. So it will be possible in Brazil to measure and publicize the share of the informal productive sector. Urban Informal Economy Survey, ESINF, a household economic survey with small businesses. It's a very important survey. It's important for understanding the production function of small, informal, and family businesses. It was already carried out by IBGE in 1997, and after that in 2003, and is planned to return in 2026. And a digital platform-based work module in continuous PNAD. This year was the second edition. The second edition was released with data for 2024. And next year will be the third one, the third edition. It brings results and characteristics about the employed persons who work through digital platforms, drives, delivery workers, other services. Well, I think it is what I prepared for today. Thank you for attention very much. Now I'd like to see you.
Thank you. Some comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Roberto?
Yes. Thank you, João. It's very interesting, your presentation. And my question is about your probably previous department, national accounting. So I would know if the official statistics of GDP, gross domestic product in Brazil, take into account of the value added generated by informal workers. And if yes, how?
Well, I think I didn't understand the beginning of the question. I'm sorry. IBGE so nowadays do not produce these results about the GDP of informal sector, and it's expected to do it in the next series that will be released in 2027. There are some registers that with the self-employed person, autonomous workers with a formal enterprises, self-employed persons with a formal enterprise will be accounted in the family, in the household sector, institutional sector, and with these sources, it will be provide these results. I suppose that the production function will be that will be used to this is for the smallest enterprise in this activity. However, there can be a formal one that we have results with our researchers, regular research. It will be used to calculate this result. Is it okay? I didn't understand the beginning of the question.
Thank you. Yes, fine.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Because sorry, I'm not in the area anymore in the national accounts. I talk with the people there, and what I listen about is from this way.
Please, João, could you repeat the incidents by gender, because I think that you say that in Brazil, the incidence of informality in men is 35% and in women is 30%, 4 points below. And I think that the shape of informality in Latin America is driven by the shape of informality in Brazil, because it's the huge society, it's the huge economy. So we can see that it's a
Also,
4 points incidence below.
yeah,
Isn't true?
yeah, a little less than 4, 3.5 points below. There are some activities that are very that have very higher incidence of women informality. Domestic service is one. Man informality and the activity who have many women. More than 90% of the employed person that there are women. But also there are constructions, agriculture, there are many men. So we can see in this chart that, well, we don't have the share by woman and man, but they are significant, they are important with the total employed person and also the informal employed person. So the balance is equivalent result. With this difference, 3.5 women with 31, men with 34. Thank you for your question.
More comments? Okay. Raul, would you like to say goodbye to everybody? You are the organizer of the meeting, right?
Thanks,
Thank
Santos.
you very much, Raul.
So it has been a great journey today and yesterday. We can be proud to this first workshop. I think that we have had well done, and see you in the next workshop in Italy. And it would be important to remind the work do. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Bye,
Santos.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
See you.
Santos. Hasta luego, Gilimar.